What's up, guys? So this is the Traptrix deck that I took to a locals and then OTS Championship. So locals I won, came first, going X1 over 4 rounds. OTS Championship I came 6th. So unfortunately I didn't top, but as you can see by this lovely Tri-Brigade card, I did manage to pull a Starlight, which was very, very awesome. But yeah, so I went X1-1 in the OTS Championship, and in general I was really happy with how the deck performed. Like both my losses as well were to the same person, one of the people who helped me on this deck. But I genuinely feel as though the deck performed perfectly, and every game that I didn't win was just down to me not understanding the matchup, and was definitely something that could have been avoided, which I really like. It really feels as though like I picked the right deck, and I do think this is a great deck. And one of the things that I really, really love about Traptrix, and the reason why I'd recommend all of you guys to pick up this deck, is because it's so cheap. So if you have any friends who want to get into Yu-Gi-Oh!, this is a really cheap deck that you can get into Yu-Gi-Oh! With. I have a couple of expensive staples, but you don't need expensive staples to play this. And you can, I'd say, compete with the meta. Like, it's not necessarily the best deck of the format, but it's definitely, I'd say, like top 5, top 10, which is better than we've had in Yu-Gi-Oh! For a while for such a cheap deck. So yeah, really, really good. But let me go through my ratios. So I did change it a bit between the locals and the OTS Championship, but this is the build I will be going with moving forward. There's only like 1 or 2 small changes I might make. But to start off with, so I played 2 Pudica, 3 Mantis, 3 Arachno, 3 Mellow, and 2 Dioneo. So, initially I did play 3 Pudica, but I wanted to keep the deck at 40. I was just really trying to stick as kind of close to realistic and rational numbers as possible. And having a deck size of 40 is just really important for consistency, I think, especially with a deck like this. And out of all of the names, Pudica is the one that I'm least happy to normal summon, especially later into the game, because even though she gets you the field spell, there's a couple of problems. Firstly, if she gets stopped, you need multiple extenders to make a good board, and it would happen a lot of times where I had her in hand and I would have another one. I wouldn't even risk normal summoning her, because it's just opening myself up to interruption that I don't want. She almost always will force you to play into Nib, or force you to make Rafflesia to not play into Nib, but I don't always want to make Rafflesia. And then also the field spell, after you've got the field spell, her normal summon is terrible because she doesn't do anything. Now her summon for the deck effect is amazing though, which is why I play 2. So I would say play 1 or 2 of her, in my opinion. The field spell I don't even think is mandatory. I think it's good, but I think it's not. Yeah, you can get without playing it. And so yeah, 2 or 1 of her, but she's still a really good card. It's just that her special summon from Grave or deck effect is more relevant. Dioneo, you play 2 obviously because she's the worst one to draw by itself. If you're playing Traptrizing Tune or whatever it's called, you can play 3 of this and 3 of Tune, and then it's not bad. But other than that, yeah, the card's really good. Everything else is pretty standard. All of the others are amazing. I'd say Momelo and Mantis are both amazing. Are both the best to initially see, because they're 1 and 1.5 card combos respectively for a nice board. But yeah, that's the Traptrix monsters. And then the only other monsters I played were 3 Exceed and 3 Nibiru. So Exceed is amazing, just a free rank 4, very easy to make in this deck. And Nib was the only hand trap I played. I was playing Ash, but on recommendation from a mate, I switched to Nib. And Nib was just so good. There's certain matchups you will struggle with in this deck because you can't get out big boards and stuff like that. And this kind of just stops them before they get to it. So against Sword Soul, having this and Torrential is so good because it's so hard for Sword Soul to play around their board getting cleared the first time and then still play around Nib and make a negate. So Nib's just really good. And then it's also easy to out Nib, obviously, because you can just banish a token with Pudica, which is great. And also you can banish your Nib, your actual Nibiru, to summon a Traptrix from Grave, which is great with the field spell. So yeah, so 20 monsters. Then in terms of spells, I played 3 Raigeki, 1 Guard, and 2 Prosperity. So the reason why I'm only playing 2 Prosperity is because I sold 1. If I had 3, I'd play 3, and Prosperity is just a good card for this deck. The Garden, like I said, the Garden, it's a very good card, but it wasn't mandatory, and it wasn't instrumental to any of my wins, in my opinion. 2 normal summons is very good, but this deck just has so many ways to play in the game that it just wasn't that relevant. And most of the times as well, if, for example, I would get to this, my opponent would prioritize getting rid of it, so I didn't really get to play under it. Now, obviously, that means that my opponents are getting rid of it because they know it's good. But I would be fine without playing this. But for now, there's room for it, and the deck gets to it very easily, so I'll leave it. And 3 Raigeki. Raigeki is amazing as well. Again, the biggest issue you come into with this deck is outing established boards, and so Raigeki was just so good even going first, because so many times my opponent would have several monsters on board, and then on my turn, just Raigeki, get rid of all those monsters, because not many people are playing up negates. And in terms of traps, these are new additions, so I actually played 2 of both. I don't know, I think I must have left my other Torrential with someone or something like that. But yeah, I'd definitely say that Torrential was so good. So compulsory, I didn't see it all day, but I know it would have been good. both days actually. I didn't see compulsory once. But yeah, Torrential is just so amazing. And what's specifically nice about Torrential is that in this deck you can trigger it yourself very easily, obviously through summoning through the grave, through Sarah's effect, and then your Link and XYZs aren't affected by this. Well, your XYZs, while they have material anyway. And so a lot of the times I was triggering this on my own turn, my opponent's turn with my own summons, which is just very hard for my opponent to deal with, because it just meant I had an undemand interruption that they couldn't really play around. And then once my opponents knew I was on Torrential, it made them play riskier, play like a lot more conservatively and stuff like that. It's just really, really good card. And again, established boards is your biggest issue in Traptrix, so you need a card to deal with it. Then 2 Imperm. I would actually say this was the worst hand trap. Imperm's not a bad card, but I'd say for the way you're playing this deck, you don't want to trade 1-for-1 with your opponent often, and that's the problem with Imperm. You can't search it, and it trades 1-for-1. So I actually had 38 spaces, so I had taken up 38 cards, and then I just need 2 slots, and I was like, okay, this is just a random 2 of generic. But I'd probably be fine about this. It wasn't amazing. Like, for example, I would replace this with Gozen, for example, 2 Gozen instead, just because having a generic Floodgate that can just insta-win some matchups would be better. But yeah, so Imperm's not terrible, I'm just saying that I don't think it's amazing with this deck. But then Evenly was absolutely insane. I mean, yeah, it feels like this format, basically. Someone goes first, then if the second person going second draws Evenly, they're in a great position. Like, right now, this is a very good main deck card, because every board folds to it, and it's just very few decks can play around this. Even though Traptrix can kind of come back a little bit after this if they leave Sarah on board, it's still like, it's just such a good card, yeah, and then it helps you out in boards as well. And then for the trap holes, so the trap holes are really bad. Most of them anyway. So these are the only like regular trap holes I play, which is Floodgate and Gravediggers. This is a win condition against pretty much everything. Apart from Branded, this card is just very, very frustrating for most decks to deal with. What's nice about this as well is that it's on summon. So Branded and Flunderies are the only 2 decks that I would say this isn't very good against. But yeah, other than that, it's great against everything else. And then Gravediggers because of Nibiru, and this also helps you play around hand traps and such. Again, in the Flunder matchup, and you know, I'll talk about the Flunder matchup after this. And then I play 3 of the new 1 Holotea. This is insane. Yeah, I was always prioritizing setting this from Sarah, just because it just does so much. Like, it basically gives you a free summon from the deck, which is going to trigger Sarah, which is going to trigger Pudica when you summon her from the deck. The graveyard effect is insane. The fact that you can activate the turn it's set is insane. Everything about this card is just so good, and it's just really like added a new layer. Like, this deck has a Link 1, which is already amazing, and the Link 1 is very good, but this synergizes so well with that Link 1 that like once you get in the game, you stay in the game so easily because of this card and that Link 1, which is great. And then also as well, the other thing that's amazing about this is that having this card, whenever I had access to this, I always made Redoer. Like, every single time, and Redoer is so good in this deck, and this means the Redoer will have the bounce. A non-targeting bounce, I mean, insane. So yeah, card's amazing, not much to say about that, but clean 40 for the main deck. Then going on to the extra deck, so to start off with, I played Ursa. Ursa is just really for the cash matchup in the mirror. I played 2 mirrors over the 2 days, and I played 2 cashes. I never used this against cash, it just didn't come up, even though in theory it should. But in the mirror, it's quite good. One of the things that's nice about this as well is there was once or twice where I had, for example, like I would have one of my random Traptrixes on the board and like a nib, and then I don't have a normal summon, then I'll just make this crash, search for Mellow, and now I can combo. So that's also really good about this card. I really do like Ursa, and I do think it is something that should be in every Traptrix player's extra deck right now. Played Exton. This card, I never summoned it, but I like the theory. It's basically just like giving you a dual met Zeus, but you can use the, so you summon Exton, try use his effect. If they negate it, you make Zeus. Use the effect again, good. Cowboy for time, it never came up. Zeus, because Zeus is OP. Redoer, this is the best card in your extra deck by far. I used to play the Springans package. I didn't really miss it today. Like, in the locals, I played the Springans package, and it was okay. But I'd say this is like okay as a... Oh, and I played Baguska as well. This is like an okay lineup. The thing about the Springans package is if you're not playing the Therions, I don't think you need it. But if you are playing the Therions, then I would say you should play it. But Redoer is just by far the best XYZ. I made this every... so my best... Not best, but the board that I was going for with the Mellow combo was always just Sarah plus Redoer in 2 sets. The reason being is because Redoer has a huge amount of pressure on your opponent because you're going to potentially be getting draws, it's going to be a body on the board. In this deck, again, it struggles to beat over things, but Redoer allows you to do that because it's actually quite a big body as well. It's removal, I mean, it just does so much. And then also, because you're putting Holotea and the Traptrix under this, a lot of the times when I make this, I'm protecting my graveyard from like, they're not as aware that, for example, there's a Pudigon or Holotea that can interrupt them because under Redoer, no one's looking at the XYZ materials that that deeply, and so it just came up a lot where it's like they would out the reader, okay, now it's engrave, Holotea and Pudica engrave, use Holotea's effect, summon Pudica, banish their board. I mean, it's just so good. Yeah, Reader was insane, MVP card. I always went into it. Most of the time it's better than Rafflesia in my opinion. Then for the Traptrix XYZ, so we played 2 Rafflesia, different rarities, sorry guys, 1 Iomerus, 1 Pingacula. So Rafflesia's good. The biggest thing about Rafflesia's amazing is her protection effect. Her on-field effect wasn't, like, her on-field floodgate effect, it's not that it's terrible, but it just didn't come up as much because people would always have negates or ways to get around her. They would prioritize getting her out, and I didn't often make the second one. Alomeris is really just pushing for game, and that's why I do recommend having it, because she essentially allows you to convert 2 low attack Traptrix monsters into this one and another one, and then use their effects again, especially with Mamelo, which is nice. Pingacula is really good in the branded matchup, and she's nice as well because she's unaffected by what's underneath her. So it did happen a couple of times, like Kashtira, for example, that would put something underneath her. Now my opponent can't really do much about her unless they just beat her over her. So Pingacula is good. So yeah, I think these ratios are fine. The second Iomerus didn't come up for me, so yeah. And then for XYZ, he's played 3 Serral, 1 Caleria, 1 Aetibus. So what I'd actually say, interestingly enough, is that Caleria is better than I thought, and both the Link 2 and Link 3 came up a lot because of Baguska. One of the plays that I should have done, so I lost against Flunder, the 2 losses I had over the both days were both against the same guy, Flunder, really cool guy. He helped me out with this deck. And Baguska is so good in this deck because one of the things you can do, obviously, is make Baguska and then sit on these 2 cards. And this generates huge amounts of pressure. This generates huge amount of advantage for you because it summons in the end phase and your opponent can't play. And I think the ability to do that is a win con for Traptrix that I'm not seeing people abuse enough. So because of that, I actually like the Caleria and Aetibus more. And like, I could see a reasoning to potentially bring these up and kind of prioritize that as a win con, especially against decks like Flunder. That's how you're going to beat them, by like this kind of lock, which is quite nice. And Caleria's end phase effect just kept coming up for me, where it was like my opponent would have some random nonsense, and it's like, okay, make Caleria, end phase effect, summon Mamelo, pop, and especially because sometimes my opponents would lock me under Rivalry and stuff. Not Rivalry, sorry, they'll lock me under Tikaboo. And so when you're under Tikaboo, it's quite frustrating in this deck because you can get locked into plants or insects. Then obviously you have this, and then you summon Mamelo pops it, and then now you're not under Tikaboo anymore. And then obviously Aetibus for OTKs. Sarah's just busted. Link 1s are OP already. Like, any deck that has a Link 1 is in a good position, or has potential to be in a good position. But this is a Link 1 with 2 good effects as well. So yeah, this card's just insane. Go through 3 all the time. Yeah, really, really good card. And the fact that she's unaffected by traps as well just comes up every single game, which is amazing. So yeah, then extra deck. So extra deck was 3 Cyclone. So your biggest issue you're going to have in this deck is actually, funnily enough, going to be dealing with a couple of generic floodgates and then dealing with big monsters. And so my side deck, I didn't really worry too much about like siding for my opponent, like generic sprite board or whatever, because I have so many outs in my main deck. I never, like, if I was going second, I only sided in specific matchups. In some matchups, I didn't waste my time siding going second because I know I have all the breakers already. And so because of that, I had 6 back row cards for Labyrinth, because in the Labyrinth matchup, you lose to their floodgates. And so these just kind of deal with that. And then also Runic as well. Runic's a really horrible matchup for this. So Cyclones are really important in that matchup as well. Lightning Storms, I did side these in against Sword Soul, but I didn't need them. But yeah, so only 6 cards for going second. And then for going first, I played 9. So 3 Anti-Spell, 3 Judgment, and 3 Iron Wall. So, oh, here's the other torrential. That's hilarious. So, Anti-Spell's amazing because you don't play a lot of spells and everyone's playing Breakers this format. And apart from Evenly, this deals with every other relevant side card apart from Evenly. It doesn't deal with Lava Golem, I guess, but Lava Golem isn't really relevant. So, yeah, this deals with everything else, which is great. And then Judgment and Iron Walls for Evenly. And what's so nice about Iron Wall, and this card was amazing, is that it also hits Flunder and Kashtira. And it hurts Branded a little bit as well. And for Sprite, it slows them down as well, because funnily enough for Sprite, if they can't smashes you and they can't Omnibara you, they have a bit of trouble getting over monsters that you can't beat over. And so Iron Wall was just really, really good. A lot of times my opponent wouldn't expect it because it's like, now I know going first, as long as I see one of these cards, I'm in a really, really good position. It means my opponent has to see specifically an Evenly or specifically a 2-card combo of board breakers, which they're not going to see often. So I was really happy with this part of my side deck. It did so well. But yeah, guys, so now to talk about my matchups, I'm going to put this shiny little Bucephalus here with a Serra. Just want to talk about it. So in the locals, I started off against Kashtira, and that was a win to me. 2-1. That was not too bad. This deck has a good matchup into Kashtira because you have a win con in Floodgate Trap Call. So if you go first, you're in a great position. Even if you go second, this deck is really good at kind of playing back into Kashtira, which is nice. Then my round 2 was Traptrix Mirror. Yeah, no, round 2 was against Flunder. I lost against that. Flunder is a difficult matchup for this deck, I would say. The biggest thing being that the trap holes I play especially aren't very useful against it. But yes, I lost against Flunder, unfortunately. Round 3 was against Traptrix Mirror, I won that, and then round 4 was again against Castiro, which I won. Then for the OTS Championship, round 1, what was round 1 against? No, round 1 was Traptrix Mirror again. Again, that was quite a clean win for me. Round 2 was against Sprite, which I managed to win that. Round 3 was against Flunder, like I said, same guy. Lost against that, unfortunately. Round 4 was against Sword Soul, which was quite a clean win for me. And then last round was against Labyrinth. And Labyrinth is my best matchup, and I do think I would have won, but unfortunately, just it's a trap matchup. Our first game was like 18 minutes. And no, sorry, our first game was like 28 minutes. Second game was like 10 minutes. Didn't really have enough time to do anything relevant in game 3, and I couldn't get to Cowboy in time because he had D barrier. But yeah, all in all, this deck performed really, really well. I do think it's a great deck, so definitely have a try. And I will be posting some DB rated matches because I've been grinding the heck out of this deck online as well. I think it has loads of potential. So guys, thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you all soon. Peace.